Welcome back to Decisions That Count, the podcast where we unravel the mysteries of decision making and the impact of every aspect of our life, from computer gaming, high stakes business deals, to while even just getting through the day.
And today we're diving deep into a topic that's incredibly relevant to a huge portion of our listeners: the mental load of running a household. If you're a mom or the key household decision maker, you know exactly what we're talking about. It's the never-ending to-do list that lives in your head. It's the constant planning, the organizing, and the anticipating of everyone's needs. It's the weight of keeping the household running smoothly, even when it feels like everything's falling apart.
But here's the thing, a significant portion of that mental load is actually decision fatigue in disguise. And that's what we're going to talk about and unpack today. We'll explore the science behind decision fatigue, how it intertwines with that mental load, and most importantly, what we can do to try to reclaim back some of that mental energy to find more balance in our life.
This episode is for all the mums and key household decision makers who are feeling overwhelmed, burnt out, and like they're constantly running on empty. We see you, we hear you, we are you, and we're here to help.
Now, to help us understand this complex issue from both a scientific and probably more importantly, a personal perspective, I'm excited to introduce my amazing co-host, Michelle. Not only is she a fantastic super mom who somehow manages to keep all of those balls in the air, but she's also a marketing whiz and a marathon runner. Talk about a master decision maker and mental endurance.
Thanks, Shawn. I'm excited to be here and share my experiences with our listeners. I've definitely learned a thing or two about managing the mental load and overcoming decision fatigue, both in my personal life and in my career.
And for all of our listeners who might be new to Decisions That Count, I'm Dr. Shawn Watson. I'm a neuroscientist, entrepreneur, and a father. I've dedicated my career to trying to understand how our brain works and how it makes decisions under pressure. My research on decision fatigue has led me to explore the impact in various contexts, from the boardroom to video games, playing on the field, and now to the heart of the home.
Shawn's background as both a scientist and an entrepreneur gives him the unique ability to bridge the gap between theory and practice. He can explain the complex workings of the brain in a way that's both insightful and relatable, and he always brings it back down to how we can use this knowledge to improve our lives.
Thanks, Michelle. I appreciate that. And I'm actually really excited to have this conversation with you today.
I'm really excited to talk about this today. I feel like there's a lot to unpack in here. Over the last few years, you know, the term kind of the mental load of the house, or, you know, household mental load, or even like domestic mental load, has been talked about a lot in the press, particularly in relation to mums. And I think maybe first we should kind of just talk about the definition of that and what that means. So it's just saying here that by the mental load, it's not the physical tasks of the household. And by physical tasks, we can talk about kind of the laundry or the cooking or, you know, washing the dishes. It's actually the constant thinking, planning, and organizing that goes on behind the scenes. And I think, you know, my partner at times doesn't understand what I mean when I say I'm feeling really overwhelmed and I'm struggling with the mental load. And it's things like remembering kids' friends' birthdays, arranging gifts for those, the parties, the party dresses, scheduling appointments for anybody in the house, keeping track of all of the groceries, doing all of the shopping online, making sure the pantry is always stocked, ensuring everyone has got clean clothes, ensuring the kids who grow out of everything so quickly actually have clothes that fit them, you know, making sure that the house is reasonably tidy, organizing play dates, summer camps with the kids, any sort of kind of extracurricular school activities, figuring out how to sneak vegetables in the kids' meals, doing all of the meal planning, making sure that everyone's eating what they want, because everyone has got different requirements. There's worrying that comes with it as well, like worrying, making sure like the kids doing well at school, you know, are they on top of their homework? You know, have we taken everything out of their bags? Have we got all of the messages from the teachers? We're not missing anything when it comes to school. I think, you know, even things like, when does the aircon need fixing? Or, you know, is the washing machine knackered? Do we need to get a new one? You're kind of almost in this constant state of like managing a bit of a to-do list, thinking about what needs to go on the to-do list, preempting the things that could be needed. It's a lot.
It is, yeah. And I mean, I think traditionally that falls on the mom, right? All of
Yeah.
that workload. And I think what's important, I mean, just summarizing what you're saying, is you're responsible for physical health of the household, so the vegetables and all those things, the emotional health of the household, right?
Yeah.
So how's everybody doing? You're the one who's going to be the most on top of that. Even the social health, friends, play dates, sometimes even, husbands and partners need help with their social life to plan, nights out with friends or whatnot.
My husband would not have a social life if it wasn't for me.
He's not the only one. No, for sure. So it's you're talking about arguably some of the most important things in life, right? And you take the burden on, and many moms do. It doesn't necessarily need to be a mom, but the key decision maker of the household or single parent are taking that load upon them. Like traditionally speaking, if we look back, the at home mom, right? It's a full-time job. So compound everything that you just talked about, but now add a full-time job to it. And because the reality is that it's most households are doing dual income. It's required from a financial standpoint, but we haven't necessarily seen that shift from that traditional role away from the mom to maybe picked up more from the other partner. So yeah, that emotional connection to all of those big decisions though is going to be paramount in developing decision fatigue.
Let's tell our listeners a little bit about what decision fatigue is, so we can just kind of get some context as we kind of talk about the mental load of the house.
Sure. Yeah. And you've probably heard it if you watched our previous episodes before, but decision fatigue first, it's not mental fatigue. So it's not when that sense of feeling tired or you need something to increase your wakefulness, like a cup of coffee, an energy drink, or even some supplements. Decision fatigue is somewhat mutually exclusive from it. So you can feel very tired and have decision fatigue, or feel wide awake and suffer from the condition as well. And importantly about decision fatigue is the consequences are very different than mental fatigue. So there's two consequences of decision fatigue. The first is decision avoidance. So this is actually when we kind of, our brain shuts down and says, I'm not making any more decisions right now, right? So paralysis of decision making. And the second consequence is what we call default decision making. So this is when the brain will actually say, I'm tired of decisions and I'm going to default to a decision that I'm most comfortable with, what I think is the safest or the easiest. So some examples of that from the decision avoidance side, it could be the foundations of procrastination. So leaving an email in your inbox is an example I always like to use, saying I'm not going to even open that email because I know it's going to require me to make a decision. So I'm just going to leave that till tomorrow.
So that could be, I'm just trying to put it in the context of, a household decision maker. That could be putting off, planning a holiday. That could be, or just, is it putting off or is it avoiding? Like
both.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it can be avoiding the decision entirely, procrastinating, so putting that decision off to another time.
Yeah. You just think you're suffering from decision fatigue. You need to plan the summer holiday, or you need to decide what camps the kids are going in, and you're just thinking, I just don't have the capacity to make this decision right now.
Summer camps is a good one, or in our case, in this part of the world, winter camps. When you get all those choices and you're like, this is just too many decisions. I just can't make this decision right now.
Yeah.
And we've done that in our home currently, right? Now we're running out of time. So that's decision of avoidance. And the default decision making, it can be as benign as when it's time for dinner and instead of looking at if you're ordering in at a restaurant menu and picking a new restaurant with new foods, you don't know if the kids are going to like or whatnot. Maybe it's just defaulting back to the same meal that you always order from the same restaurant, or cooking the same things. So you're kind of almost risk adverse in some degree because you're not willing to you just default back to that safe decision.
I think there's also an additional component to something like that as well. Is that if, you just like, the kids are going to eat chicken nuggets and pasta, like you just know. So it's like, so some days it's not just the decision, it's like having the energy to follow through on it as well. So it's like making the decision to make a healthier, maybe introduce a new food and know that that's going to be a battle versus just giving them something that they're going to eat.
And an example it's a good example, and one from my own life is I actually started first really becoming cognizant of decision fatigue because after a long day of work, my 3-year-old wants to play and do something, I would actually default to just the easiest decision, which playing with him after a long day of work is like blocks in the living room. It's not going out and scooter riding or anything like that. It was just the easiest decision for me to make. And I recognized that, yeah, decision fatigue was actually causing it. And obviously affects your relationship with your loved ones. But my easy decision was staying at home rather than going out with him.
Wow. That makes me really sad. And because I can see me doing that as well.
And this is why decision fatigue is, for me, like we need to talk about this more, because it's impacting potentially everything in your life. Because if we have a certain number of decisions a day, for an example, or quality decisions, and those are in the morning, I'm using up my good decisions at work, or my quality decisions at work. So that by the time I'm at home and I have time with my family and my loved ones, I don't have those high quality decisions anymore. I'm not willing to do things that I normally would have in the morning. So decision fatigue is absolutely affecting our personal relationships and certainly the relationships in the home.
And what's the emotional reaction? Is there an emotional reaction to decision fatigue? So is it potentially feeling overwhelmed with decisions? You walk through the door and straight away the kids are like, where's this? Can we do this? I want to go out. What are we having for dinner? And you're all of a sudden you're just like, God help me. But is decision fatigue contributing to maybe feeling irritable?
Yeah, good question. There's certainly some research in the space, and even from our side, we've done some work in this space as well, because it's interesting. So in tasks that you see the results of your decisions immediately, video gamers, for example, they suffer from decision fatigue, and then they have a very quick emotional response of frustration. They call it tilting, which they get angry at the decision they just made, and that decision was caused from decision fatigue. So they avoided a decision or they made a default one. So in their situation is very quickly tied to an emotional feeling. I think at home it definitely could be. It's probably not something as acute and sudden as a video gamer, but I think the feelings of burnt out, overwhelmed, are certainly aligned with decision fatigue.
Yeah, and guilt, right? So it's like, if that's what you're feeling kind of guilty when you get home and you've not played with you're choosing the easier option when it comes to playing with the kids. As
a parent, you know that. You know you're making that decision. It's not the kid's fault, it's your fault, right? Like you know what you did. So guilt can absolutely be there, right? But it's also for the relationship with your spouse or your partner. Instead of making the decision to go try a new restaurant, to go do something new together after a long day of work or a long week, right? At the end of the day, you say, no, let's just stay at home and watch Netflix. Now, there's nothing wrong with doing that, of course, but you may come to realize in your own relationship that decision fatigue is affecting that relationship. You're not doing new things. You're not, maybe all the stuff that used to excite you from going out and trying stuff, you're not doing as much because you're just defaulting to what's safe and comfortable. So Michelle, I mean, it's a great question back at you, and I think a lot of people will relate to your situation. So, and we briefly spoke about it in the introduction. You're a mom, obviously, and you manage most of the decisions in the household. Your full-time job, right? A relatively intense job, requires lots of after-hour work. Your full-time career. You also prioritize your health, as all of us should, right? So you value marathon running and all the other fitness things that you do, and you put your health at high up on the priority list. That's very admirable. How do you balance that? And especially now that you know about decision fatigue, is there anything that you look to do to try to help you keep on those balls in the air?
So since we've been working together and I've become more cognizant of decision fatigue, I have realized that I've actually put systems and protocols in place to reduce my decision fatigue or reduce the mental load. So you're right that I've got a big life, and I'm a type A as well. I'm incredibly type A. I want to do more and want to do things well. But in order to do that, there has to kind of be systems in place. So I'll give you a couple of examples. So I will plan maybe a quarter at a time what my fitness routine is going to be. So I train every single morning. I'm up at 5:30. I train between the hours of 6 and 7. It's my sacred time. God help anyone that tries to interrupt it. And I will know what sessions I'm going to do. Normally it's strength training strength training Monday, Friday, high intensity Tuesday, Thursday, and then running Wednesday, Saturday. And I kind of do that on a quarterly basis. And at the end of each quarter, I will tend to have a goal that I'm working towards, whether that's kind of building muscle, whether that's high rocks, whether that's a marathon, whatever that is. But I will actually kind of plan that out almost a year in advance. So that's kind of what I'm doing now, planning for 2025. But what that means is that every night before bed, my kit gets laid out. I get up and I do it. I don't have to think about it. There isn't a decision of me waking up going, am I going to train today? What am I going to do? I already know. I will also, if I'm training on my own and not with a trainer or at a gym or in classes, I will pre-plan all of my workouts, whether I'm using ChatGPT or whether I'm using something that I've already got. So again, I will never go into the gym unprepared. Like I will always know what I've done. But in order to save time and be really efficient, I do everything like ahead of time. And so something similar with the meal planning, and this is for the house. I have an 8-week meal plan. And so every 8 weeks, I will take a look at the meal plan. I'll maybe switch a few meals out that didn't go round. And it takes me hours, like, going through cookbooks, like remembering the favorite recipes. It takes me ages. But it saves me a lot of time and it saves me a lot of decision making. So like I know what we're going to all be having for like breakfast, lunch, dinner, for 8 weeks. It's done. Other things that I'm doing as well when it comes to my work, instead of having my to-do list, I have a decision list. And so this is new since we've started to work together. And it's really thinking about what are the most important decisions I need to make today? What are the most important decisions I need to make this week? And I'm changing the structure of my day to focus more on the more important decisions first thing and the less important decisions as the day goes on. I'm thinking about pieces of work as the decisions that need to be made within that piece of work. So an example will be I'm a marketer. By trade, and I will do a media plan or a communications plan for a campaign. Now, this requires like a lot of micro decisions that need to be made. So it's, okay, first of all, kind of which target cohort are we going to be using? What's their journey? Looking at their day. What channels are we going to be using? What's the format? What's the messaging? What are we trying to communicate? What type of copy? And so, if we're looking at a communications plan, there could be thousands of like decisions that need to be made in one communication plan. Like it's a very heavy decision-based piece of work. And so I will prioritize to do that in the morning versus maybe in the past, because it's a chunkier piece of work, I might have left it till the afternoon when maybe I had a clearer block of time. So those are just kind of 3 examples of things that I'm doing to now I'm more aware of decision fatigue.
It's amazing to hear. So by eliminating decisions, you help with decision fatigue, basically, by forming habits and planning and schedules.
For the fitness and the food.
Yeah.
Yes.
You probably know my question is going to go. So what about the stuff that you can control? Kids, house, family, right? How does decision fatigue affect you as a mom with kids and birthdays and parties and potty training and all of that sort of thing? Which maybe, you can't plan for that. There's no planning a 5-year-old or a 3-year-old or whatnot.
No. There is to a certain extent. I'll be honest, right? So I'm trying to
tell us, please. I'm listening.
This is me like hacking everything. I'm trying to preempt things. So above my bookcase in the living room, there's about 20 boxes of like toys and stuff. And so actually what I will do is I will do like a Toys R Us order like a couple of times a year, and I'll just buy maybe $30, $40 each and buy like 10, 20 different gifts for ages similar to like my kids' age. So
for birthday parties?
For big birthday parties. So it's like, so whenever it's a kid's birthday party, there's a gift waiting. We pick a gift off the shelf. Sorry to anybody that's listening, it's not that personal. Like, I'm so sorry if your kid's just getting like a craft set, but needs must.
We have a birthday party tomorrow and I have to go out and get the gift after this podcast. So I appreciate the planning ahead. Okay, so you try to plan ahead as much as possible for that.
Yeah, and like the kids' clothes, I will I'll batch buy, maybe like every 6 months. I'll just kind of go onto like one store and just be like, right, okay, 4 pairs of shorts, 10 t-shirts for my son. Everyone needs new trainers done. Like I'll kind of try to do it all in one go to reduce that kind of having to make all of these decisions as you go. Like it's not going to stop things coming up. It's not going to stop like my son coming home when he's wrecked his shoes and I need to go out and buy a new one. Those things are always going to come up, but I try to preempt as much as possible.
I think this is really interesting, and it's important probably to double click. So, I mean, just because the purpose of the podcast we've discussed is to build awareness for decision fatigue. So, a lot of these moms or the key decision people in the house are probably feeling overwhelmed, burnt out, all of these things. And actually what you're describing is, well, first we need to make them aware that they're probably feeling that way just because the sheer number of decisions they're making. And number 2, the strategies that you defined is actually a way to eliminate a lot of mundane decisions so that you have hopefully more time for the important decisions.
Yeah.
Because we have to remember decision fatigue can be caused by just the sheer number of decisions we're making every day. Yeah. Or if decisions are made in situations of stress and anxiety, or there's a strong emotional connection to the decision, which anything with children's and family, of course there would be.
For so long, it's been so hard to explain to people who aren't going through it what the mental load of the house is. I really struggled for many years to kind of explain to my husband, like, you just don't understand, like how drained I'm feeling and how like overwhelmed I'm feeling with all of the things that have to be done. Like whether or not I'm doing the thing, I'm thinking about it. And then sometimes I feel like my husband's just not. Like, and I don't know if that's because I've taken on this role. Like I've taken on that role of like key decision maker for the house, and it's evolved as the family's grown into what it is. Or if it's a gender-based thing, like maybe you could tell me, like, is there any science behind it as to why maybe women do take this on a little bit more?
Sure. Yeah, we can definitely talk about differences in gender. Maybe first though, just what you highlighted from like a spouse or a husband and what they can do. I found once I really got into decision fatigue, and I briefly mentioned this on another episode, is that when I saw that my wife was overwhelmed, right? And it's like, oh, what are we going to have for dinner? I would tell her that she could make the decision, thinking I was the nice guy being like, hey, well, you pick whatever you would like to have, right? When in reality, that was probably the worst thing I could have done. I should have actually just take that decision on and just pick something that, she likes and the kids like, and just taken that decision off of her plate. So I think sometimes, in defense of some of the husbands maybe, is I mistakenly gave choice or decisions for things when she was already totally overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. And of course, this isn't important things like vacations. Of course, we need input, but just mundane decisions that just wear you down. Yeah. So I think that I learned to try to absorb more of those decisions, especially when we had kids, because that was a big catalyst of change in our life.
This has only happened since you have become cognizant and aware of the decision load.
It is. I mean, I've been married a long time, and only recently did I start to make these changes. And again, I thought her being overloaded, the solution was to let her choose something that she would like, which again, that's not what she was needing. She needed me just take the share of the decisions away. It wasn't physical tasks like laundry or anything like that. It was just the decisions that she needed help with.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, that's what I was kind of saying before. It's like I didn't ever have a way to articulate it, like what, how it feels and what it is, until we started working together. And as soon as we started, you really explained decision fatigue, I was like, oh, this is it. This is actually, it's the decision load of the house. Like I'm making 90% of the decisions for the house alone, and I think there's like a loneliness with it that makes it hard as well.
Decision fatigue is a result of changes in society. So 15, 20 years ago, our parents didn't need to really think about decision fatigue. If the numbers are accurate, maybe they're making hundreds of decisions a day, 20 or 30 years ago. Now numbers are saying something like 35,000 decisions a day. So this is a problem that's actually unique to our generation. And an example I always use is, I wake up and I'll scroll Reddit. Social media, just scrolling, every piece of content is a decision to consume or not to consume. So before I'm getting out of bed, I'm probably making hundreds of decisions. So this condition is new. We need to start talking about it more. That's part of the podcast here, is to make people aware of it, because people aren't thinking about decisions. We just make them, but we're not actually thinking about our decisions or how the quality of our decisions change over the course of the day. And a great question is, who gets our best decisions? Is it work? Is it our loved ones? Is it our friends? Who gets the best quality decisions? I bet you we've never thought about that.
I'll be honest, that stings, because you're right. Like, who is getting the best decisions? And often, let's be honest, like, we wake up in the morning, we scroll social media. So social media is probably getting some of the best decisions. I'm trying really hard not to do this anymore now, knowing what we know. But social media could be getting your best decisions. Then what is it? Work? Any other content that you're consuming? Then you get home, and if you're a working mom or a working key decision maker for the house, you get home, there's nothing left.
But planning can help to ameliorate a lot of that. So if we say, you know what, with the spouse, like, we end up just watching Netflix every Friday. We always talk about going out, but when Friday night comes along, we're just too burnt out and we want to stay in our pajamas, right? So maybe book that restaurant before. When you wake up in the morning, you spend those good decisions on picking something fun and enjoyable. So you're taking away that decision on that Friday night. You already know what you're going to do. So you can give people, spend your decisions wisely, and planning ahead can really help with that.
So something that we have started doing recently, me and my husband, and it's still very new, so I think we need to kind of report back maybe in a few months to see if we've actually kept it up. But every Friday morning, we are having a family meeting, just the two of us, where we'll just have breakfast together on a Friday, and we will talk about the week ahead and make decisions together. Because I've said to him, look, it's the decision load. I'm struggling with the decision load of the house, and I've realized that I'm making 90% of the decisions for the house. And you won't want that. He does actually want to be involved. He does want to start making some more of these decisions as well. So how can I let him in, and how can we make them together? And so we've been sitting down talking about kind of the week ahead, and maybe making some decisions on who comes home at what time. Maybe are there any decisions that need to be made for the kids? Do they need to do any CCAs or like after school activities? So far, it's been really helpful. We're also making bigger decisions. So it's like, okay, we know about holidays. Where do we want to go? What type of place do we want to stay? And it's helping. Like, I'm feeling like a weight is being lifted. Doing it in the morning has been really important. So we've tried in the past to have these conversations in the evening. We can't. We just can't. We end up just snapping at each other. But doing it first thing on a Friday morning, so far it's working really well.
Report back to us.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a smart thing to do, for sure. And I think it also is a great way to bring, because again, to defend husbands, they may not know about that decision load. Yeah. So it's a great way to give insight to how many decisions you're actually making, from the mundane to the very big, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's an important thing to do, activity to do, or workshop to do, just to give insight to that load.
I think a lot of it's in the positioning as well, right? Because if I turned around to my husband and said,
says the marketer, right?
Yeah, I know, yeah. always finding the angle. Is if I'd said to my husband, okay, Friday mornings, we're going to go through our to-do list and we're going to talk about what needs to be done for the week ahead. He's just going to be like, oh, no, that is not a meeting that like I want to prioritize. But as soon as we position it and talk about, okay, look, actually, this is decisions. So like family decisions, let's make these decisions together. He's like receptive to this. Yeah, I want to be involved in these decision making. And so as soon as it feels, and this is again coming back to me talking about work earlier, changing the way I'm thinking about things from a to-do list to a decision list, and the same applies to the household, is actually making it more appealing to do it, if that makes sense.
No, I mean, just how you positioned it there too. It's bringing someone on board. It's like as a team, right?
Yeah.
For these decisions. So, it's a topic that's not talked about enough. And I mean, in counseling and all the therapies, it's all about communication. But I bet you in a lot of those counseling sessions, their decisions aren't talked about, because I bet you even the field of psychology and therapy, it's not up to date yet on decision fatigue. It's something that's so new in society that we probably haven't seen that even counseling circles.
And this is it. We were so many people talking about, oh God, the mental load, and I'm struggling with the mental load, but it's actually defining that even further. And I think as soon as you realize it, so much of it's a decision load, then you can really start to find the solutions.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about solutions a little bit. And obviously I've already kind of offloaded a bunch of stuff that I'm doing and tips, but it'd be great to hear from you. Let's maybe talk about kind of the individual. So the key decision maker, what can they do to help reduce decision fatigue, combat it? The right way of saying it?
Yeah, great question. And I think we've talked a lot about it already, or strategies you can do, maybe just to make it a little more succinct. So the first thing is eliminating, decisions that you don't need to be taking. So scrolling social media in the morning, just be cognizant that those are decisions you're giving to social media. You're not spending them how you maybe want them. So start to look at decisions as a limited resource you have throughout the course of the day. It's a gas tank, and where are you going to kind of spend that gas on? So planning ahead, we talked about, so scheduling things, because that'll help to remove a decision at the moment in time. And I know we'll have a whole podcast on habits and forming habits, but if you're trying to, go on a date with your spouse, or you're trying to work out or start a workout routine, it's going to be a lot more difficult if you're trying to make that decision after a long day of work to start working out, versus planning ahead, like in your scheduling, to remove the decision. You just know you're going, there's no decision to be made.
Just on that, book a class. Just if you get it booked and you've paid for it, you'll go. Like 99% of the time you'll go. That's one of my biggest tips. Again,
of course. Yeah.
Or you don't need to plan 3 months in advance. Maybe that's like a little bit excessive, but even just like a week in advance, book all your classes, book your sessions, book whatever it is to get you to go.
For me, for working out, I make it so that it's never a choice to go to the gym, but I have the decision once I'm there to go home. So I force myself to go to the gym. And then if I'm not feeling it, I can always decide to leave. Of course, you're never going to, because you've made it that far. So planning ahead or paying is something similar, because the decision's taken away. Over the course of the day, though, so we do know napping and sleep is the most effective and easiest way to get rid of decision fatigue. Easiest neurologically, not easiest in practicality, of course. So you can't kind of start taking a siesta up. But there's been a lot of work showing about getting out, walking, even a break. So some research has shown with in the judicial system, or in the financial system, just getting out, eating some food, walking around, just a break from whatever intense activity you're in can show an improvement. There's other things that we're looking into, and by we, I mean kind of neuroscience at large. So cognitive motor dual tasking. So trying to build the cognitive resilience, so that you don't suffer from decision fatigue quite as quickly. So there are some strategies out there. I think probably the easiest or the most important thing for people to do is first just become aware of it. So just start thinking about your decisions as a limited resource. Number 2 is planning and scheduling. So spend those important decisions to plan ahead for things that you enjoy and love in life, whether it's people, things, activities, or what have you. Make sure that you're spending those great decisions to plan it, so you'll do it. And then third thing is, we'll just call it kind of general health. So look at how are you sleeping? Are you getting breaks during work? Are you walking? Are you getting green space? All those things that we know is good for overall cognition and brain health. That'll also contribute to helping you kind of build resilience towards decision fatigue.
And what about tactics and things we could use as a couple or as partners together?
Oh boy, yeah. Well, I'm a neuroscientist, and I bet you as soon as my wife sees this, she'll be laughing and laughing that I got asked this question. No, I think, I'm a firm believer that at the end of the day, communication is the most important thing for everybody. And probably, though, what you're not communicating about right now, because I certainly wasn't with my spouse, was decisions. So I think the first thing to be aware of is that communication. Because like I said previously, I would bet that your husband has no idea about the number of decisions that you make. I certainly don't, because my wife will think about crazy things. Like if I shouldn't say crazy things. We need to delete that part.
Definitely keeping that in now.
No, I mean, as most moms, like every aspect of our boy's life she's thinking about.
Yeah.
Everything from shoes to friends to if bullied, not bullied at school to things that I would not ever think about, just to put it frankly, right? But once I learned that this is part of her decision load, it was remarkable. I'm like, my God, like you are thinking about all of these things and making active decisions for that. And as a neuroscientist, I know this isn't, things that don't matter. These are actually incredibly important to her. They're all emotionally charged because it's dealing with her kids. So even the shoe type to, if our youngest is walking properly and I don't think twice about it, it's funny to see him on his tiptoes, but it's like a big worry factor. So she makes decisions on how to hold him, how to walk him, shoes, all those things. So, and females too, just neurologically are primed differently. So there is a neurological difference between males and females. Of course, you have to be careful in that. It's not an excuse. It just means that we are wired very, very differently.
Like, this might sound daft, and I don't know if there is a reason, maybe psychological, or more psychological and physiological, as to why I feel a little bit of relief when I share some of the decisions that I'm making with my husband. So an example would be like on the Friday morning when we have our like little kind of meeting, I'll say to him, okay, this is what the kids are doing. Like, I've made these decisions on this. I've made these decisions on the car, the dog, the this, the that. Like, I'm not asking him to make a decision on any of those things. I'm not asking him to take those decisions off me. Like, those decisions have already been made. I'm kind of making him just aware of the decisions that I've made and getting him to go, okay, cool. Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good. That sounds good. And then there'll be a couple of decisions where I'm like, look, these are bigger decisions, or these are logistics. Often it's more around kind of the logistics of, okay, who's going to pick up the kids on that day and who's going to do this. I find that having those conversations, even though he's not taking any decisions away from me, just by having the conversation, I feel like a sense of relief. Is there anything in that?
Yeah, well, I'm certainly not a psychologist for it, but I think maybe a few things there. The first is I think it's very important to talk about the number of decisions. Not that you're trying to give them away, just as again, as a husband, it's very insightful to understand how many decisions you're making as the decision maker of the house, because it makes should make the husband or partner more cognizant, aware, and see where they can help to take away some of the mundane decisions. So I think it's just very insightful because it's not something that couples, certainly we never did. We never talked about it. To your question about sharing, I think there's lots of psychology, in a marriage or a relationship. It's a team. You share everything. You bear the weight and the burden. When it comes to very emotionally charged decisions, it's nice to have that backup to give you confidence, right? When it comes to your kid, because I mean, the crappy thing about being a parent is that just when you're getting good, you're kind of done, right? Just as you're learning things of how to be a good parent, that phase is over, that time is over, and you only really have one go. So certainly in my own life, I know that you're both trying to figure out how to do this, and so having that person on the journey with you can make a big difference to relieve some of that load. And I think communicating those decisions probably will help with even decision fatigue, because then it's not just bearing that burden, that very emotional decision alone.
Overall, just being really cognizant of decision fatigue has really helped me kind of understand how I'm feeling at the end of the day and why I'm feeling that way, and what I can do about it. As you can probably all guess, I'm a bit of a planner anyway.
Really?
I kind of live my life by spreadsheets, my poor husband. But it relieves a lot by being able to, pre-plan ahead of time and remove those mundane decisions. And we've spoken many times about, look, we all know Steve Jobs wore the same thing every day, because he didn't, it was removing a decision. It was removing a choice early on in the day, so he didn't have to think about it and could focus on the more important decisions that he needs to make. So, again, with the training, with the fitness, the health, the food, your kids' schedule, all of these things, trying to be as kind of organized and prepared ahead of time, remove as many decisions as you can on the day, just helps absolutely massively. And then, yeah, communicating with your partner, making them aware of the decision load, where they could maybe share some of the decisions. And if you're not a complete control freak, giving them some decisions to make. But I know for some of us that might be quite hard. I think there's also tools as well that we can use to just help with the decision making, like the shared calendars, decision lists, tasks and things like that. And we talked a little bit about repositioning a to-do list to be a decision list. It's even things like, okay, rather than we need to book a place to stay on holiday, or we need to find a place, an Airbnb for our trip. It's like, okay, we need to make a decision on where to stay. I think even just those subtle reframings have actually made it feel less like a chore and more like a collective thing that we need to do together. Just like to talk quickly a little bit about how, what if we don't manage our decision fatigue, what can happen to us?
That's the golden question, I think. Scientifically, we don't know yet the repercussions of chronic decision fatigue. So like I alluded to earlier, this is a condition that's very new to our society and culture. 20 years ago, we didn't need to worry about this. And now we have people who are chronically suffering from decision fatigue beyond doubt. This is a new type of burden that people are experiencing to add on top of everything else that we already have in our life. And this podcast is personally very important to me, just because I think moms are probably one of this group. So the key decision makers of the house are one of the groups that are going to be most susceptible to this condition, especially now with changing traditional roles and women in the workforce, which is wonderful. But the expectations at home haven't really changed for them. They still take on most of the burden and decisions in the house, but they're also running a whole full-time job. So I think this group of people is extremely susceptible. And I don't have the answer about what the consequences of this are. Certainly feelings of burnout, loss of confidence, hopelessness, all of this would probably apply, because we've already touched on it. When you have decision fatigue, quite often you're aware of it and you feel guilty or bad about the decision you made. If it was a default decision that maybe wasn't the best decision for your kids, but it was the easiest one to make, you're aware of it. You know what you did. So yeah, it's pretty unexplored, I would say, for it, but we can feel it. We can all feel it.
Yeah, we can feel it. Yeah. I think we've talked a little bit about how when you go to bed at night, your brain almost resets. Okay. It clears the synaptic waste and allowing you to wake up in the morning and you are fresh as a daisy. As long as you've had a good night's sleep, your decision fatigue's gone and you're ready to make great quality decisions. But if we are entering decision fatigue every single day, does it become chronic?
I think given the current theories of what causes decision fatigue from a physiological standpoint, I think there has to be chronic consequences for day after day after day. Yes, it's regenerated in the morning. All indications are that, but there's not enough research to know that is there some little thing that changes that lasts. So if it's, maybe 1 day, 1 week, it's fine, but now multiply it over months or years. I think there are going to be consequences for this. We just don't know about it yet because it's so new to society.
Yeah. And I know, look, we're mid-December. It's the end of the year. I have to say, I feel like I'm suffering from decision fatigue every single day. I feel like I'm waking up and I've got it. It's been a big year, a lot of work, a lot of decisions are being made now about kind of the holidays and the plans and travel and everything that kind of comes with the season. And I think, throughout the year, you tend to kind of have these flows where you're like, I just need a holiday. I need a break. I need to get away. And I'm sure some of that is like mental tiredness and physical tiredness. But I think just from how I'm feeling, that there's like a decision tiredness. I am done making decisions. I want to go away and have some time off and not make decisions, not think about anything.
You hit it. It's decision fatigue.
Yeah.
And times that by days and weeks. And a vacation, we've all, maybe been there. When you go on a vacation, you come back and you don't feel rested at all. But probably when you were on decision or on the vacation, maybe you were still scrolling, you're still making loads of decisions. So you never took a break from decision making,
Yeah.
which is maybe why you were feeling that way in the first place to require that vacation.
Oh God, there's something to unpack there. We'll save it for another episode. Shawn, thank you so much. Gosh, there's so much in here that's food for thought, just in how I'm managing everything. Work, health, fitness, life, social, family, everything.
Yeah, I think on this podcast, we'll be talking about decision fatigue and athletes and making money and AI. And I think this episode may be the most important one, because this is the group, if we think of moms or the decision makers of the house, the backbone of society, right? And making them aware of this condition hopefully will make a difference, even just a little bit, so that they can start to think about their decisions more. And decisions are a limited resource, and where are they going to put them? Because I think this demographic, this group of people like yourself, is acutely suffering from this, and they just haven't been able to define it. So hopefully we can just make them aware as a first step.
Definitely. I think so many of us are suffering from the mental load of the house and not knowing what to do about it and feeling a bit hopeless. And I hope people can look at this episode and maybe feel some relief. First of all, identifying what they're feeling, and that there are some strategies to release some of that or prevent some of that decision fatigue from happening. To anyone listening or watching, if you want more information on this, because we've got quite emotional into this one and quite personal into our lives, but if you want more information on decision fatigue and what is actually happening in the brain, listen to our first episode, because Shawn really gets into the science there. So I'll give you a bit more of an understanding of the condition itself. And then please just comment below. Let us know what you think of this episode. Tell us how you're feeling. Tell us your interpretation of the mental load and decision fatigue. Ask us questions, because this is an episode I'd actually really like to revisit again. Maybe talk to some more people, because it's such an area that I feel very personally affected by.
Well, Michelle, thank you so much for being here for this episode. Your insights and taking it to that personal level, I think, is so important to help people to relate and understand this condition, especially as a mom who's trying to do everything.
Thanks, Shawn, for sharing all of your amazing science. All your amazing knowledge. It's so valuable to understand why we're feeling this way. Really, really, it's a great start. Thank you.
Well, hopefully it puts a name to what you were feeling. I think that's a big point of it. So today we've delved into the kind of invisible disabler of decision fatigue and how it can affect and is affecting so many moms and key decision makers of the house. So hopefully it was insightful for you. Hopefully you've related to some of it, and you maybe have noticed that you experience decision fatigue in your own life. And we've talked about a few strategies and protocols and things that you can do that can maybe make a difference and help you kind of unburden some of those decisions in your life. So thank you so much for listening. And if you have any comments or thoughts, please do post them below. If you're more interested about decision fatigue, check out our first episode. I talk a bit more about the science and what's actually happening in our brains when we suffer from this condition. So thank you so much, and looking forward to seeing you next time.